What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. Today it's the Game Week 23 preview. So as always, going to go through all your questions and topics that you want answered. There is still one more game to be played in Game Week 22 tonight, which is Spurs versus Chelsea. But it's not really going to have too much of a, it's not going to make too much of a difference based on what you guys have been asking me. Kind of double game week, Salah, players to attack over the next few game weeks, all that good stuff, plus a Q&A at the end. So make sure you tune in and listen to the whole lot. Lots of good info in this one. Hit the like button if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you're new around here. Let's jump into it. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly touch on double game weeks. And the reason I'm just going to quickly go through this is because it's pretty much the same as what I talked about in the Game Week 21 preview. There's been no more fixture rearrangements, no more fixture postponements, which would change any of this. Basically, by Game Week 24, we should know who is then going to double in Game Week 26. The reason for that is the FA Cup games. When we know who's gone through, we'll then know that they can't play in Game Week 29. Neither can their opponent in Game Week 29, and therefore most of those fixtures will be rearranged to Game Week 26, right? As you can see from Ben's image here, this is fully not my image, this is Ben's image. Go and follow him on Twitter at Ben Krellin. Very useful account to follow if you're a Twitter user. If you're not, well, start using Twitter because it's extremely handy. So the yellow ones are likely to double and the orange ones are possible doubles, right? And a lot of that is because of who we think will go through to the next round of the FA Cup. It doesn't always work like that. Sometimes there are upsets, etc. So nothing's really changed apart from one thing, right? There was a Arabic Man City Twitter account that tweeted out their upcoming schedule, and in one of the blanks they basically I can't remember what it said word for word, but it essentially said there was a fixture to be rearranged, right? And that will be in Game Week 24, which is what Ben has been saying for a while. And then very faint in the background they had an Everton badge. So the reason this image has slightly changed is it now looks more likely that the Man City double in 24 will be Spurs and Everton, and because of that it means Leeds versus Southampton could go into Game Week 26. And if that happens now, Leeds could have a double game week of Villa and Southampton. So before I think it was possible, but now Ben is saying it's likely. Again, he himself, and I'm sure he'll tell you this, he cannot be 100% certain this is how the fixtures are going to fall. It's not 100% certain that Man City will double in 24 and it will be Everton, but it looks quite possible. So if you've already got Luka Dean, James Rodriguez, Calvert-Lewin, etc., they could be doubling in Game Week 24 when they also play Fulham, which would be good. And really, when we come on to talking about Man City players, maybe later on or maybe in the stream later tonight, the reason that you just don't want to be getting rid of them right now is because they potentially got a double in 24, 26 and 27. So even though the fixtures are tough, right? Spurs, I think they got Liverpool in there at some point as well, Man United, etc. Sorry, they play Liverpool now, in Game Week 23. They're worth keeping because they are going to play twice in all those weeks and they're just such good assets anyway. So study this image. For me, the teams still to be targeting are probably Aston Villa, still looking good, Leeds plus one of Spurs, Everton, Sheffield United, Man City, of course, we've all got their players anyway. And don't kind of miss out on Spurs as well. I know they got Man City in Game Week 24, but then it's West Ham, then Burnley in 26, plus one of Villa, Fulham, Southampton. So a pretty good double game week for Spurs. Arguably, that week, that'll be the best triple captain if you're going to use that chip in that week. And then you'll see the other teams like Liverpool have got Sheffield United, good. Chelsea, not so good. Man United have got Chelsea, not so good. Crystal Palace, pretty good. So some of the big hitting teams don't have the greatest double game week. So we're looking at kind of Villa, Leeds potentially, Spurs and Man City are the best. So I won't go into that in any more kind of detail or talk anymore because most of it then will be just like what I talked about in Game Week 21. All you can see on the right in this one is which teams are likely to blank and then the permutations of when or what will make them blank, right? So Everton will blank against West Brom if they beat Spurs in the FA Cup. If they don't, then they'll play that game, right? So that's kind of what the image means. So that's it for double game weeks. Let's get on with the rest. So I know a lot of people have asked me when is the best time to wildcard if you've still got it. I think that's still up in the air, depending on what your team looks like and depending on how the fixtures fall. Some people will still wildcard in kind of game week 25 or 24, whenever it might be. Potentially even in game week 26 if you don't have a bench boost available. Like if you've used that, which is unlikely, I know, you could just wildcard in Game Week 26 and perhaps you're just looking at the next few fixtures, or you could try and get through the double and the blank and then wildcard afterwards in Game Week 30. That strategy is really down to you, and until we see more fixtures and how your team is set up, it's really hard to say. But I know a few people now, because they're wildcarding early, they're looking at kind of some shorter term punts. So this is the fixtures or the best fixtures for Game Weeks 23, 24 and 25. Obviously, if you're wildcarding ahead of a bench boost, in 26, you would have to activate it beforehand. So it would have to, because you can't use 2 chips in the same week, right? So you'd have to use it in 25, in which case you may be only looking at the next 2 fixtures. But these are probably the best fixtures. Now, let's just start with Burnley in the middle straight away. I don't think too many FPL managers, regardless of the fixtures, are looking to bring Burnley players in. I think Chris Wood really in attack is the only one that I would look at, and he was also injured for the last game against Man City. We'll have to see if he's back. And Brighton's not even that good of a fixture, which we'll come on to in a minute. Then it's Palace away, West Brom at home. So no one's probably looking there. Man United, and by the way, this could be useful even if you're not wildcarding, because for a lot of people, you're probably trying to roll into Game Week 24, right? That's what I would be doing. That's probably what I should have said on the double Game Week section. You want to try and roll a transfer this week if you can, because by Game Week 24, we're going to get all the info we need about the doubles, or pretty much all the info, and having 2 free transfers will be useful. But if you're not, or if you want to use a transfer this week, I think Man United look really good. Obviously, lots of people have got Bruno Fernandes already, but Rashford is an option, and not just because he just scored against Southampton, but I mean, I was kind of in 2 minds recently about saying to people, you should keep him, you shouldn't, but the fixtures were always there. Yes, obviously got a bit lucky like everyone else against Southampton, but Everton at home, West Brom away, and Newcastle at home are decent fixtures, and I think if you forget about form and all that kind of stuff, which I'm going to talk about at the end, I think he's a really good option. Or Cavani potentially, but I still worry about him sharing minutes with Martial. We saw, obviously, against Southampton, they brought him off. Now, potentially that's good for the next game. They want to rest him. And there are kind of less games in quick succession now. But Man United definitely worth looking at. And if you are just looking for the next 2, then West Ham, if you don't own Antonio, he is a great option to buy. Although probably won't have a double game week, so it may be worth considering there is a short-term punt, but if you've got a wild card, it doesn't matter. Jesse Lingard we'll talk about at the end. Obviously, Souček is really good as well. So these are kind of the attacks that I would be looking at. I don't think there's too much there which makes you think, right, I've got to rip up my team. But for those of you with a lot of money you're looking to spend, potentially you want to take a bit of a punt, I think Rashford double up with Fernandes looks good for the next 3. I think Lingard potentially, if you think last night is a sign of things to come, I'm not so sure about that. We'll see. Could be an option. Or Souček, obviously, if you're not playing him or you've not got him right now, the amount of points he scored this season is ridiculous, and the next 2 fixtures are decent too. And Antonio, of course, as well. I think Chris Wood has got something to say because his underlying numbers are always good, but Burnley's attack is just not inspiring. Horrible to watch most of the time, even though they did put 3 against Villa recently. But that's the best attacks. Let's look at the best defences. So best defences, maybe a little bit more interesting than the attacks, because I think people are more likely to bring in a defender over the next couple of weeks, given who their main players are playing, especially for those of you that are on double Man City defence. There's a big decision to be made against Liverpool, which we are going to talk about in a minute. I'm going to talk about that match in particular on its own. But if you did want to bench a player this week from your Man City defence, maybe you want to bring in a defender this week. And there's quite a good few fixtures out there, or a good few teams with decent fixtures. Now, I'll touch on Burnley again. For me, their players just don't have enough upside, I don't think. Like Tarkowski, they're a little bit more expensive than other ones you can get as well. And I just don't know if there is enough upside. But they are a very good defence. And Brighton are not scoring a huge amount of goals recently, or at all really this season. Palace away is good, and West Brom at home is good as well. So Tarkowski could be decent. Obviously, you've got Peters playing at the moment. I think Taylor's out. We'll have to wait and see how long he is going to be out for. I think he could be back soon. But Tarkowski could be an option as a centre-back pairing with a bit of goal threat. Tarkowski or me could be options for them. And then if you want to go somewhere else, so Man United, I've just talked about their fixtures. I think they've kept something like 4 clean sheets in the last 6 or 7. They've done really well recently. And they've got good fixtures again. Everton, West Brom, Newcastle. Now, which Man City defender we go for is interesting, because Luke Shaw is probably the one. And the fact that he, like Cavani, came off early against Southampton makes me think, obviously, he's being rested, his minutes are managed because they want to keep playing him. He does have Telles there, which is always a bit of a worry that he could get rested and Telles could play in the easier fixtures, right? Everton at home, I'm almost certain that Shaw will start, but West Brom and Newcastle, I feel like Telles could start one of them, and it's annoying because Shaw is probably the most attacking out of all the defenders, so he's someone to look at if you're not too concerned about his minutes being managed or him getting rested. Like, the chance of him being taken off at half-time too many more times are unlikely. Otherwise, you've got Maguire goal threat, and Wan-Bissaka, who... Look, I've got him. Let's be honest. I only have him because Maguire was on 4 yellow cards. I would definitely have had Maguire. I would have been happy when he scored his goal against Sheffield United. And then I would have been disappointed that Wan-Bissaka got 17 points and I didn't have him. Now, I did tweet in the Sheffield United game before Wan-Bissaka went and scored against Southampton that he is seemingly on the eye test getting into the box more, trying to arrive late in the box. When Shaw has the ball in particular on that left, he's getting forward. Now, that probably is because they're slightly easier fixtures, Sheffield United and Southampton with 10 men and then 9, of course. But West Brom away and Newcastle at home are pretty decent. And he also scored against Newcastle in the reverse fixture. I'm not saying to take that into account, but it just shows that he is getting forward. So I don't think he's suddenly going to be turning into this attacking monstrosity where we have to own him. But he is guaranteed to start. There's not really too much competition on that right. So if you wanted a bit more safety, he could be the one, or Harry Maguire, of course. For Chelsea, we're going to have to see the Spurs versus Chelsea game tonight. I think if Alonso starts again, he is a consideration, but still a risk because Chilwell's a good defender that is going to get minutes. So I can't see him being completely frozen out. The other one for me that I'm looking at who started the last 2 or 3 is Rudiger. Now, Sheffield United away and Newcastle at home, and even Southampton at home are decent. I think Southampton have only scored 3 goals in their last 9 matches, and I know Ings was injured, but he has featured quite a bit in those. So has Che Adams, and they've just not been scoring. They have been a bit unlucky in the last 2 games not to get a goal due to VAR, but outside of that, their attacking numbers are just starting to come down, and Ings in particular, his attacking numbers are half pretty much what they were last year in terms of expected goals. So I think that fixture's good. And even before that, Sheffield United away and Newcastle at home are decent. And Rudiger is someone that I'm considering bringing in. But Dunk and Brighton are also really good options, right? Spoken many, many, many times now about how good their defensive numbers are. And it's starting to come to fruition. When we talked about the Game Week 18 free hit, out of all the teams playing in Game Week 18, they were the second best expected goals conceded. And I think now they are second or third for the whole season. Right, and we're starting to see it. They've only conceded 1 goal in the last 5, and they've had some tough fixtures. They played Spurs, they played Man City, they played Leicester, they played Liverpool, and the defensive numbers are coming through. And they've swapped the goalkeeper, which has helped too. So Burnley away almost feels like a guaranteed clean sheet. Crystal Palace at home too. Villa at home will be tougher, but it's worth looking there. And I think Dunk for 4.8 million. He's had the most shots in the box out of all Brighton defenders over the last 6 weeks. He could be the one to look at. Lamptey obviously is someone that I do like, and a lot of, you see him and he is very attacking down that right side, but obviously he's injured at the moment and he's probably going to be out for a few more games as well, so we can't really look there. So I think Dunk, potentially Mio Tarkowski if you want to go for Burnley, Wan-Bissaka or Shaw, or even Maguire, because I think Wan-Bissaka is probably a little bit hopeful about him carrying on with his attacking returns, but you never know. If he is being told to get into the box a little bit more, that could be good. Even putting a good cross as well for the assist. And Rudiger is cheap. So there's lots of cheap options, and I think these do kind of supplement Man City defenders quite well. And arguably, you could play a lot of these this week instead of both your Man City defenders if you wanted to take that risk. So FPL managers might just be some of the most fickle people on the planet, and I include myself in that. I do this from time to time too. So in Game Week 21, I did a Game Week preview video and I kept getting asked, should we sell Salah? Should we sell Fernandes? Should we sell Bamford, right? And I pretty much said no to all of them. I could see reasons why people were selling Bamford, but for hits and stuff, I just wasn't interested at all. I didn't really want to sell any of them. Fast forward to Game Week 23, they all have double-digit hauls. Salah scored 15, Bamford scored 15, and Fernandes obviously scored 17 as well this week. Now, the funny thing is, in Game Week 22, I didn't do a preview video, but I guarantee you, no one would have asked me whether now was the time to sell Salah, right? Because he just scored 2 goals against West Ham. Now we're in Game Week 23, he's blanked against Brighton. Now we're suddenly got loads of questions in reply to my tweet. Is it now time to sell Salah? I've seen it on stream. Should we sell Salah? Other content creators are being asked for it. And look, the fixtures are not great. I also think, from a captain point of view, probably not going to be a captain option over the next 5 weeks, right? And I'll tell you why. First of all, it's Man City at home. No one's captaining him there, right? And maybe some people will, but I doubt it. Game Week 24 is Leicester away, right? So it's not the worst fixture, but Leicester are not a bad team. So I wouldn't expect a massive haul in that game, although Bamford obviously got his against there. So it's not impossible. But also Game Week 24, if we think that Man City have a double, right? No, who's captaining Salah over a Man City player? Very unlikely. You go to Game Week 25, Everton at home. You could captain him that week, right? There aren't too many other really standout fixtures. I think, you could look there potentially, but Fernandes has Newcastle at home in the same week, so he's an option. So it's not that Salah is a bad option, it's just that he's not necessarily the standout. 26 we know is going to be a double game week. I've already talked about that and how Spurs possibly could be the ones to captain, especially if Kane is back. And then game week 27 is a good captaincy fixture, Fulham at home, arguably one of the best as it stands. But again, if Man City get a double game week in 27, are you going to captain Salah over them? So this season, my kind of philosophy, or whatever you want to call it with transfers, is to have the best captain, right? Therefore, this week, if you think that Son is the best captain and your easiest route is to do Salah to Son, I don't think in isolation that is a bad move. But if you're going to want him straight back, that's 2 transfers. So my question would be, is there a better way for you to get Son? In terms of his numbers, the funny thing is, I've pretty much used the same image, but I've obviously adjusted the numbers a little bit and added some fixtures in from when I did this in 21. But all those numbers have gone up. I can't remember the expected assists, but the expected goals per 90 has gone from 0.37 to 0.39. So that's per 90 over the whole season. The XGI went up slightly, and the shots in the box went up from 10 to 14. So over the last 6 games, his stats have gone up versus the last 6 games when we did it in game week 21. And yet now we're still talking about selling him, right? So his underlying numbers are not the best in the league, right? 3.44 expected goal involvement over the last 6 matches. I think there's like 7 or 8 players ahead of him, but most of them are really kind of close together. So for me, I've already been asked today, is Salah out a priority, right? And the key point in the question, or key word, is priority. When you look at the rest of your team and you're thinking ahead to game week 26, when Salah will almost certainly have a double game week, is he the player that needs to be removed to your squad? And I'm not sitting here trying to put people off selling him. If you want to sell him, absolutely go for it, right? If you think Son's a better captain and you want to keep him for a few weeks versus keeping Salah, absolutely go for it. But I can't imagine most teams where he is the priority transfer out. Yes, in terms of FPL points, it has not been coming through. But just 2 game weeks ago, he got 15 points against West Ham. Everyone was saying he's back now, going to captain him against Brighton. And I think that is part of the problem. I'm going to talk about form in a minute. People are reacting too much to what's happened rather than looking at it, I don't know, more objectively, but about how the player might perform in that particular game, not worrying about the fact that he's just scored two goals the week before. So for me, I don't think I'm going to be selling the Salah. Like I've got no wild cards, so it's a bit different, right? If you had a wild card that you were going to use soon, maybe you do it. But I don't have a wild card, and I'm thinking, right, I've got to get some money off my bench. I've got to possibly bring another defender in to cover Man City players. How am I going to get Harry Kane in? What if De Bruyne comes back? How do I get him in? Like, having Salah makes that ideal, right? If you thought that Kane or De Bruyne, when they were back fit, are better options than Salah, well, that gives you a very easy route to get to them. So I guess I'm not against selling him, right? It's your team. Obviously, you can do what you like. That's the whole point of FPL. You don't have to listen to me. I often get stuff wrong. I don't pretend otherwise. But for me, the fixtures are not awful. But the key thing for me is he's probably not going to be a captaincy option for the next 5 weeks if the doubles fall how we think they will, in which case it's probably less of a risk to kind of sell him if that's something that you're worried about. But I think the underlying numbers are still pretty good. Liverpool's underlying numbers are still pretty good. Granted, I know at times they're not looking kind of back to their best, but Jota could be back soon. We'll have to wait and see on that. Mane could be back soon. It's all going to help Liverpool as a whole. So for me, should you sell him? I'll say the same thing I said before he got 15 points against West Ham. Not for me, but do I expect loads of points against Man City? No. Let's talk about that game. So maybe unsurprisingly, a lot of questions about the Liverpool-Man City game. Not just how will that game go, like predictions, but also what to do with your FPL players for that game. Now, just standard thing for me in FPL is I don't worry if my players are playing against each other, right? So if I've got Salah and I decide to play double Man City defence, I won't worry about that at all, right? Most of it comes down to who you want to keep long term. So I've just talked about Salah. I do want to keep him for a bit longer. Therefore, I'm not necessarily looking to sell him anyway. And the question then comes down to, is he the part of my 7 best attackers, right? If I'm playing 7 attackers, is he part of that best 7? So for my team, it's him versus Chris Wood, really. Now, Chris Wood actually has quite a good fixture this week, but do I trust him enough ahead of Salah? Probably not. So I just play Salah. I don't even take into account that I've got 2 City defenders. That's then a separate conversation. Are my 2 City defenders better for this week against Liverpool than the ones on my bench? Now, on my bench, I've got Rob Holding versus Villa. I expect Arsenal to concede. And I've got Wan-Bissaka against Everton. Now, arguably, Wan-Bissaka against Everton might be better than Stones or Cancelo in isolation, but for my particular team, I also have De Gea, so it's double City defence versus double United, and I think in this week I'd probably trust the City defence a little bit more, right? So that means I have 2 City defenders if I make no transfers, against Salah, and that doesn't really bother me, right? Now, whether you should play them or not is obviously a different conversation. We'll come on to that now. The only time where I sometimes do worry about, not worry, but make decisions based on players playing against each other is when it's a close call. So last week, I had De Gea versus Southampton, which I thought, okay, could be a clean sheet, they could concede. And I had Martinez versus West Ham. I thought, well, could be a clean sheet, but they also could concede. It's a difficult game. But because I had Antonio, I decided to bench Martinez because the call was close. If Man United were playing West Brom, or Martinez was playing against West Brom and I happened to have a West Brom attacker, I don't know why I would, but that's just an extreme example. I would still play Martinez because I would say that's a pretty good fixture, right? So this is the same kind of thing. Now, in terms of how the game might go, the interesting thing is these two teams are very similar, apart from maybe in defence, right? Liverpool's defence is really good still, despite the injuries. But Man City's defence is a step up. It's been ridiculous this year. So expected goals conceded per 90 minutes, 0.71 per game for City is incredible, right? Liverpool's is still very good at 1.04. Man City is that step above. In terms of expected goals per 90, Liverpool slightly ahead, but not by the difference it is for the defence. So 1.82 per 90 and 1.76 for City. I've also got the last 6 fixture stats. Now, I haven't put them per game because ultimately they've both played 6 games in the last 6, right? And again, look at that expected goals conceded for City, 1.72. I know the fixtures have been easy, but that is absolutely ridiculous, right? 1.72 over 6 matches. Liverpool's is 4.87. So again, per 90 minutes, both teams will be lower than their season average. So both the defences are still good, but Man City's attack is maybe slightly improved a bit. The thing is, this is one of those matches where I almost throw all that out the window. Because this is a game that's so big, right? Liverpool cannot lose this game. If they do, like we already think that City are going to run away with the title. If Liverpool lose this game, for me, that's kind of almost like it's sealed. Now, I wouldn't ever write the Premier League off this early, but it would look difficult then for Liverpool to get back. So part of me thinks it's going to be quite a cagey affair, right? Will Klopp come out to attack? Or will he worry about losing the game? He doesn't strike me as a manager that would worry about losing the game, but I don't think he's going to go gung-ho. We've seen in the past, I think the last game, they played 4 attackers. I think they played Jota, Mane, Salah and Firmino. He can't do that now, right? Mane might not even be back. Jota's probably not going to be back. Shaqiri is not either of those 2 players. So he's going to probably have to play his usual 4-3-3 or something like that. So I don't think he's going to be on the attack maybe as much as he was in the original or the reverse fixture when they played each other early on the season. And Man City, kind of the same. I expect them to line up with pretty much the same side they have the last few games. But we know how good they've been defensively. It's going to be extremely tough for Salah and co to get past. So if you're worried about playing your defenders, I probably wouldn't be. I will say, if I decide to bring a defender in for my own team this week, whether it's Rudiger or Dunk, whoever it might be, I will probably bench one of my Man City defenders and just hedge my bets. Because on his day, obviously, players like Salah and hopefully Mane will be back. They can score against anyone. And this is one of those games that maybe nerves creep in or something like that. It's difficult to know because Man City is so far ahead, or going to be so far ahead if they win this game. And Diaz has looked so good that maybe they'll be fine. They'll be comfortable. They'll just go out knowing they can win the game and just take it from there. But you look at the numbers, both teams, very good attacks. Both teams, very good defence. Man City definitely a step above them. Obviously, we know that Diaz has been such a marked improvement on that centre-back partnership. And the long and the short of it is, would I bench Salah? Yes, if I had 7 other attackers that were better than him. Some people might have that, right? You might have like Rafinha and Bamford and think they're better options against Crystal Palace. That's absolutely fine. Man City defence is that good that I think there is a conversation to be had around benching Salah if you have him. But it has to be a very good attacker for me to warrant that. And with the defenders, I don't think there's any issue in playing them. But if you want to bench one like I might do, that's good too. So Q&A up next. Now, this is like just some general questions that I've been asked that I'm going to go through, or some topics that I just wanted to talk about. So benching headaches. Obviously, I've seen a lot of people frustrated that they've benched a lot of points, especially this week, right? Justin, I've seen on bench. I've seen Wan-Bissaka, Souček, probably Leeds players, Bamford as well. He's returned. That's going to happen when you've got a good squad, right? You can't do anything about that. You have to just keep picking the players you think are going to score the most points. FPL is a simple game. And I say that out loud. I know, again, it sounds stupid, but it's no different to the captaincy, right? Sometimes you'll pick the captain that you think is going to be the best, and they end up not being the best. My team this week, so far, without Son, every single player is returned apart from Salah, and Salah is the one I captain. That happens. I'm lucky, I guess. Lucky that I've got no points on my bench, but my bench has got points in previous weeks, right? I played Wood. He got 8 points. Okay, Souček got more, but I thought that Wood was the better pick. I got Holding off my bench last week. He got points as well when Stones and Cancelo missed out. So it's mostly psychological. When you see points on the bench, you're frustrated that you don't have them. But ultimately, that means you've got good players in a good squad that you can call upon. And if it just so happens that you've got bench players left over because you've bench boosted, or you've got bench players because you've got a bit more money to go around, that's just what happens with a better squad. All you can do is pick the 11 that you think are the best. Everything after that is just out of your control. You cannot control it, so you shouldn't worry about it. I know it's frustrating, right? If I'd bench Wan-Bissaka 17 points, that would be killer. Everyone will be telling me about on Instagram, YouTube comments, Twitter, how much of an idiot I am. But that's just the way it is, right? Sometimes you get bench headaches. It's better to have a good squad to call upon than to have players on your bench that aren't getting any points ever, who leave you less flexible. One question about, should we stop the herd captaincy? So first of all, the key word there is herd, right? If you're picking your captain just because what everyone else does, that's not the right way to be picking your captain, right? I picked Salah last week in advance because I thought he was the best pick. Ended up not being so. It wasn't just that he was going to be the most captained, right? I also thought Fernandes was a good option. I think, to be honest, I think there's a lot of people, I think there's a lot of hindsight going on here because you've captained Salah. He was the best pick, and you're like, wow, we shouldn't go with the herd. We should have gone for Fernandes. Well, let's not forget that Fernandes, I don't think, scored any points until Southampton went down to 9 men. He also scored a penalty that shouldn't have been given. Okay, he got 2 assists outside of that, but his 17-point haul probably looks much better than it was. Now, I did think beforehand that Fernandes was a good captaincy option against Southampton, so I'm not kind of begrudging his points, but the way they came, you cannot beat yourself up about that by going for the herd captaincy. Next week, Son, for me, in my team, is the best captain, right? I don't care if everyone else captains as well. I'm just picking the player that I think will score the most points. Some people will think that Antonio is a better option. That's great. And he will be less captain than Son. That's also great. But if Son scores more, who cares if your captain was differential or not, right? You want the one that's going to score the most. Effective ownership should not come into it. How many times earlier on in the season did I keep getting told you cannot get green arrows if you haven't got Kane and Son? Well, I've sold both of them twice, right? And so far I'm doing okay. Could I have done better if I had them longer term? Possibly. But I'm not going to worry about that. Those little things that are outside of your control. And that's the problem. People base too many decisions about ownership. Don't look about ownership. Look at your players. Look at the fixtures. Decide your captaincy. My key point would probably be decide your captaincy in advance, right? And this is why I've got ignoring form. So for me, Salah was my captain before he scored against West Ham. I even tweeted it, right? This week, before I see Son play, unless something major changes like an injury, Son will be my captain against West Brom. People look at form, and when they say form, they're looking at FPL points scored. So before West Ham, people didn't want to captain Salah. He hadn't scored. He scores against West Ham. Bam. Next game, people captain him, right? That's not the way to do things, right? It's not the way that's going to get you the points long term. You need to be looking at underlying stats, the opponents, and you need to possibly be looking at that in advance so your decision is not swayed by what's just happened points-wise. So I have tried to ignore form. It doesn't mean I'm not captaining the player that everyone else is captaining every week, right? If that happens, so be it. But I like having my captaincy out in advance. So, for example, Son against West Brom, Chelsea could beat Spurs 5-0, right? And Son could blank. I will still captain Son against West Brom unless something major happens. And by the way, with form, I'm not saying that you should completely ignore what's just happened, but you have to ask yourself, is there something big that has made that happen, right? Salah scoring 2 goals against West Ham was not because Liverpool have suddenly remembered how to play football. It just so happens that the chance he got, he put away. And in previous games, he hasn't put those chances away. So for me, yeah, Son versus West Brom. Then in Game Week 24, it'll be Fernandes unless City get a double game week. And in Game Week 25, it'll probably be Fernandes. And I won't worry about whether Fernandes has just scored points in the previous games to that. So I would largely try and ignore form. I think usually it's based over a couple of games, 4 games. It's just a small sample size. Look at how that player's done for the season. Are they now completely out of form, or is it just that they've had a few bad games, a few bad fixtures and stuff like that? And don't worry about the herd captaincy. Just go with the captain that you think is going to score the most points. FPL, like I keep saying, is a simple game. And we will end on Jay Ling's, a.k.a. Jesse Lingard. A few people asking me if he's now a genuine punt. Talked about West Ham already. Next 2 fixtures are good. He possibly got a little bit lucky last night. I think from a general footballing sense, he played well. Right, I can see him starting the next game. I think he came through 90 minutes, did well. Moyes obviously happy with him, brought him in. And a good player in that kind of role, very close to Antonio, right? He did really well there, running off Antonio. That basically, Antonio assisted both of Jesse Lingard's goals. So there's quite an interesting dynamic they have already. But Martinez probably should have done better for both goals, especially the second one. So I don't think suddenly getting a brace makes Jesse Lingard come into our thinking. But he's cheap, not that anyone needs money right now, and the next 2 fixtures are good. So as an outside punt, I like him. Is he better than Souček? Probably not. But I like that dynamic with Antonio. He was playing off of him and often ran past. And maybe this is what he needs. He needs to be getting minutes. He wants to get minutes. There's obviously Euros to come this year. Maybe he still thinks he's got an outside chance, and he just hasn't been playing at Man United because they've just got so many options. But at West Ham, maybe this is the move he needed. So I'm not against it, but it does feel a little bit knee-jerk that he's just scored 2 goals and bam, he's now in everyone's thoughts. So that is it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give it a like and hit subscribe if you're new around here as well. I will be back tonight at 10 o'clock to react to the whole game week and look ahead to next week straight after the Spurs versus Chelsea game for the knee-jerk stream. I need Son to get a return, either an assist or a goal to go through in the cup. So we'll see if that's happened. Probably not, but yeah, we'll wait and see. I'm not expecting anything from Son this week. Team selection will be out tomorrow, once the game week's finished. Captaincy as well in the evening, and a deadline stream on Saturday. So loads of content to come. Make sure you get subscribed. And if you want to support the channel, keep things going on here, make it bigger and better than hopefully you think it already is, consider signing up to Patreon. There is a link in the description below. We've got so many people signed up now, I've had to create a 6th Patreon Legends wall. So thank you to everyone that signed up, and a big shout out to Fabian F on screen 5, and then on screen 6 Cameron S, Karlik, Daniel L, and George H, who have all signed up since the last stream/video. I probably need to figure out a better way to display patrons. There's so many of you now, but thank you very much to everyone that supported. Keep hitting the like button on the video, subscribe, like I said, if you're new around here. Leave me a comment below if you've got any other questions, and I'll catch you again tonight for the stream.